This is Infection, the survival podcast, recorded live on Tuesday, October the 4th, 2022, episode 403. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome into another edition of Infection, the survival podcast. Infection is your weekly source for the latest on the video game industry, with, of course, some common sense political takes. My name is Nick Craig. You can follow me on Twitter at Nicholas M. Craig. You can check out all of my daily political antics by visiting my website, nickcraig.com. And if you miss any portion of this program, I encourage you to check out our website, infectionpodcast.com. Joining us is actually the webmaster of infectionpodcast.com. Send any comments at webmaster@infectionpodcast.com. Those will be forwarded to Brian with an I Aldridge. Hello, Mr. Webmaster. Hope you're doing well.
I'm doing very well. If you want to find me at Brian Aldridge on Gab, Parler, Getter, Truth Social, and if you want to check out my blog, biteoftech.com. And
Are
of
you
course,
the
as Nick
webmaster
said,
there?
yes, I'm the webmaster there as well.
But
the primary place you want to go is infectionpodcast.com. And if you look on the upper right-hand side there, there's a place where you can join our Discord server. And that's a great place if you want to maybe reach one of us or submit news topics to cover on the day's show. You can do that in the news channel. There's also 11 ARC servers running and politics. We got a number of hidden channels. So if you want to join a particular group in there, there's some other channels you can go to as well. Just jump in and start talking. If you want to watch the show, you can do that on Twitch or YouTube. Then at the lower right-hand side, we got all the podcast forums, which is pretty much mostly what we are. And so if you're going to be listening to the show, there's lots of different ways that you can do that. And those are uploaded after the live show is done. We record it live and upload the cut-up version there. And then if you are at that point, you can check out the show notes. We have show notes for each episode that we have done with links to articles that we refer to, videos that we play on the video, and source material. If you're looking to see where we got that information, just jump in there and check it out. And you can follow along while you listen. And perhaps if you're looking for a low bandwidth environment, you can play a video while we're playing a video and see it without having to watch the whole video form of the show. It makes it really easy. If you want to support us, there's a support option up top or infectionpodcast.com/support.
Yes, sir, there is. And Brian, you bring up a great point about the show notes and being able to go back and reference things that we may have talked about in the past. And it's very interesting because, for folks that follow the show for a while, the YouTube video has timestamps in there. So I've got Brian when Brian was a young lad in school, he built this application that helps me keep track of all of our topics. And so there's timestamps on YouTube, which is very helpful for some topics, including our first topic today, Brian. I'm taking over control, and I'm starting with this topic come hell or high water, and that is the announcement from everybody's favorite company, Alphabet, that Google Stadia is, in fact, no more.
Oh, yes.
I don't even know where.
A shocker, huh?
Yeah, shocker is the word to say. So, according to
remember
this
2 months ago, they said that those were all rumors. You know, the shutdown rumors were purely rumors, never, not shutting down. Of course not. Keep buying our product. Don't worry about the stock.
Correct. So this was announced a couple of days ago, late last week. They said in a press release, Phil Harrison, who is the general manager over at Stadia, said in a press release, while Stadia's approach to streaming games for consumers was built on the strong technology, that should be technical foundation, which, by the way, it is, and Google's tech has always been top-notch. It hasn't gained the traction with users that we expected, so we've made the difficult decision to begin winding down our Stadia streaming service. Stadia owners will continue to have access to their libraries until January the 18th of 2023, which is not that far away at all, and all Stadia hardware purchases made through the Google Play Store, as well as game and add-on content purchases made through the Stadia Store, will be refunded. Now, Brian, a lot of folks are sleeping on this part of the story. Google has zero obligation to refund anybody for anything. Zero obligation as a business. They provided
Terms of
the
service you accepted, signing up for the service, prevents them from being required to refund your money. when you purchase, you do it knowing that there's a possibility the service could shut down, the game will no longer be available in your country, whatever it is, that is a possibility, and those terms of services cover it all.
Well, and I think it's important to note that, a lot of people are, oh, bad guy Google and evil Google. And, sure, there's plenty of legitimacy to that. But I think this goes to show you that, at least with the people that are making the decisions for Stadia, they did truly want to build a really good service, and they just said it hasn't gained traction. And that's been the problem from day one. The service is, nobody's argued that the tech isn't good or that the underlying things. It's just that there's no traction. Part of that because of the tech. In some regards, developers had to essentially make custom versions of their game to run on Stadia's platform. And it's the chicken and the egg. What comes first, the games or the players? Developers don't want to make a game without the players. Players don't want to play without the games. You are very much straddling a line there of almost impossibility.
And I think that's for what they were trying to do. It's still early in the market, because I think Microsoft, as we've talked about before, I think they're going to be very strong in providing you games that are part of this big library that you already own, that you can either play on a phone streaming it, or you can play on a device streaming it, or you can play it locally. Like, that's all there. But I think the future where we are kind of going as technology moves along and we hit some limitations and walls is that I think that the computers that we have are going to be more of an instance, kind of like where we came from, terminal type of systems. I still think that's the direction we're going, because I don't think that a phone in your pocket is going to provide you what you're expecting to receive. Once people get used to, well, I expect 8K everywhere, and I expect it to be instant, and I expect all this and that with huge storage requirements of data. I think you're going to be at a point where you're kind of seeing a screen that is, at a data center somewhere, and you don't really have your local device. I think we will get there, but this wasn't trying to do that. This was trying to do that purely with games. It wasn't giving you a high-power remote computer that, that can do whatever you want without having to have a full computer in your pocket, right? They were trying to make it to where you could play phone games on your phone, streaming, yet making you buy every single game, and then also making it not easy. There just wasn't a ton of games. You could just pick it up and say, oh, which game do I want to play today? Oh, I got to buy a game for $60. Oh, I already own that game. We talked about that before. A lot of these games they wanted you to rebuy, you already owned. It wasn't like GeForce Now, where they're telling you, just let's go ahead and take your current library and you can play it remotely. You can stream it. This made a lot of purchases, which I think turned people off.
Brian, at this point in time, I would like to take us back, at this point, 20 months, back just 20 months and 2 days to February the 2nd of 2021, when we had this conversation on your illustrious Infection podcast. Do we start the countdown, Brian? January. I mean, do you have the book nearby? Is it possible that we say that January of next year? Is this too bold of a prediction? That this service will cease to exist? I can't.
That Stadia will cease to exist altogether?
Well, I think about this. Okay, maybe not this. Maybe it won't cease to exist. They will have announced the shutdown by January of next year, where they'll say, we are not selling any new games. You can continue to use the service till the end of 2022 or something like that. I don't see how they can go 12 more months. What's coming out in the next 12 months? What big AAA title? GTA is not ready. There's not another new Fallout. We know that the new Skyrim, Elder Scrolls, whatever it's going to be called, is at least 2 years away. So there's not a new AAA game. Cyberpunk, I think, it was maybe it, but it wasn't exclusive on the platform. And again, you could literally play it on 6 other devices. There's no reason to play it on Stadia. I don't see what they can do. I'm trying to think of what other
game. Yeah, I can't think of any more
big games, right? Something that's going to drive people to a platform. Be like, wow, this game sucks on my computer. I really need to go get Stadia to play this. I don't see that. I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything they can grab even to do that people would be willing to do. There's no company that would be willing to take that risk, because the Stadia is so small. Google would have to pay them so much to just to say we're going to put it on because there's nobody there. I mean, you're going to lose all your customers to go exclusive on Stadia. I just can't imagine anybody doing it.
So we, as talked about, the service would be shutting down by the end of 2022. And Brian, I'd say, them shutting it down January the 18th of 2023. I'm going to call that within the margin of error, and say that your Infection podcast, Brian. Again, I don't like to brag or be a trendsetter, but we called it.
Yeah, Stadia is gone. There we go. No more, no more Stadia. It's shutting down. And exactly you said, I have the book right here. We went and looked, we pulled it up. Stadia, no more. And I think you were being generous. I mean, they lasted longer than we thought, for sure.
Well, and let me give you some background on this.
They've gone for a long time losing money.
The episode on February the 2nd of 2021 that we just played, which will have in the show notes, the title of that episode was Rip Stadia, which was short-sighted on me. Now I can't use that headline again. I'll have to come up with something else. But the reason it was called Rip Stadia was because this is when they announced they were shutting down all of their studios. And at that point, we're talking 20 months ago, they announced that they were shutting all of their studios down. No first-party studios. And at that point, it didn't seem feasible that they could operate even 12 more months without allowing a shutdown or without announcing it. They lasted 8 months over that, 20 months in total, and now are shutting down here at the beginning of the year. Daddy English says the business model was doomed to fail. I agree with that. But this thing was, they indicated they were shutting this thing down 20 months ago when they shut down their studios. Because you go back and watch that episode, there was no games on it then, there's no games on it now. That's always been the problem.
Yeah. Well, in the games that are on there, this is something that I've been reading, that some of these studios were kind of caught off guard because 2 months ago, as we said, Google's indicated that there was no, everything's fine, we're not shutting down, and they didn't hint to their studios. They didn't give them a heads up that they were just going to have this quick shutdown. And so now all these studios are trying to figure out ways to port all their things out so people can get their save games. Get their progress.
I don't intend to beat up on developers, and that's not my goal. But Brian, if you honestly believed that Google was going to keep this service running, I don't care what they told you. If you, in your heart of hearts, believed that Google was going to keep this service running, I've got a bridge in Brooklyn to sell you. I mean, there was just no chance in any way, shape, or form that Stadia would make a comeback. They haven't developed a first-party game in almost 2 years. And look at this list of games.
Yeah. One interesting thing is there's a guy who's been playing Red Dead Online, and he has 6,000 hours of progress purely on Stadia.
Oh, that's tragic. Oh.
And one thing is, I understand a lot of these other companies will probably give you ways to pull things out. Rockstar, on the other hand, isn't always nice about these type of things. I don't think they're going to care about this dude in his 6,000 hours because they're busy making Grand Theft Auto 6.
Well,
and so this guy now with 6,000 hours on the online version of the of Red Dead 2, that really sucks for him because that's a lot of progress and achievements and everything else on that platform.
It is, and it's it was, and we talked about this on the computer show on Sunday, Brian. And one of the things was, how long does this service stay alive? And I mentioned in the conversation that one of the hesitations for lots of folks, myself included, I know you, and probably a majority of our audience, was we weren't sure the longevity of the service, and many folks were afraid to invest. Now, looking back at it, the fact that they're refunding everybody everything that they purchased, the risk wasn't that high. But at the time, we didn't know that. And, you wouldn't come out and say, hey, we've got this new service, and if it doesn't work out, we'll refund you. I don't think that's necessarily a good strategy out of the gate.
Yeah.
But I think I would have been, I don't know, maybe I'm just fooling myself. I think I would have been more interested in the service, or at least given it a second look, if I knew that I wasn't going to be out money, a device, or whatever when the service shut down. I think a lot of people are bearing the lead on this, that Google has zero obligation to refund this, and they're doing it for, it's not like they're not going to take your hardware back. They're just going to refund you. No. You're just going to get your money back for your controller and everything that you've got, and the games and the add-ons. And by the way, the developers are not, Google's not going to be requesting refunds from the developers. Google is going to be. So
it's actually a benefit for developers.
It's a benefit for everybody.
Only had the game on this, well, except for Google. If the people had the game only on this platform and they purchased it, and the developer, this is an indication for them to hurry up and do this, decide to put a way to export your game so that you can bring it into another platform save, well, then there you go. They're going to go turn around, buy your game again on another platform, and you get your money again as a developer. So, for them, it does work out, and there is an encouragement if they sold enough copies is the big question. If they sold 100 copies, that may not be worth the time for them to really do much and put some time into it. You sell thousands of copies, maybe it'll be worth their time.
I unfortunately fear that it is the first that you mentioned, and that there might have been, hundreds of copies sold, which is just not a lot, unfortunately. This shouldn't have been a surprise. I don't remember when I saw it, sometime late last week, and while I wasn't expecting it when I did, it wasn't a shock at all. Daddy English saying was doomed from the start, really, once they shut down their dev studios. And it was, you can go back to their very interesting launch of the service in 2019, and at the time, because I watched almost our entire episode back on February the 2nd today while I was doing some stuff around the house. Brian, at the time, we were still talking about it being called xCloud. And Game Pass was really not, you even mentioned, I wish I had pulled the clip, you were like, Microsoft is really this service Microsoft is working on is really going to revolutionize it and bring it forward. Because again, Game Pass 20 months ago was still called Project xCloud, was the streaming thing. Yeah. It's now fully integrated into everything. You absolutely hit the nail on the head with it. And Google just was unable to compete from the start. The idea that a developer has to make a unique version of their game to run on Stadia, because as you mentioned, Brian, this is not the equivalent of NVIDIA Shield, where it's essentially renting a Windows computer to play games. This is proprietary, some sort of proprietary engine on Google infrastructure that these games are running on, and that is just a huge lift for everybody involved. I'm surprised it lasted as long as it did, to be perfectly honest.
And I found a copy, someone posted on Twitter, the email that went out to when they told the internal team this, and it said, oh, there's an 8:30 a.m. Meeting today, so please, meet for this. And that was where they told them that they were shutting the whole thing down. That was their notice, was an 8:30 a.m. meeting, and hey, everything's shut down as of today. That was on the 29th.
The 29th, what day was that? That was, that's when you have an all-staff meeting at 8:30 on a Thursday, it's probably not, you're probably not going to have a good day. But again, and I don't mean to defame anybody, nobody should have believed for a second that this service was going to go anywhere anytime soon. If 20 months ago, them shutting down their first party studios was not enough for you to go, maybe I need to get my resume up, Brian, I don't know what other sort of warning signs that you need. This thing, Google kept this thing alive probably for the people that had invested in the service, and they eventually got to the point where they could no longer justify that, and now they're shutting it down. They were only doing this for the players at the end. They weren't making anything. They were getting taken to the cleaners on this.
Yeah. Now listen to this. Here's in this email during the notes. Apologies for the short notice. We would appreciate it if you can please prioritize attending this meeting, because you don't have a job anymore after this. Or check in with your manager afterwards if you can't make it. Well, to tell you that we're no longer, this is no longer a project.
I wonder how big.
No longer.
Is there any indication how big their team was? Because there was no developers.
They don't
it
say.
It must have all been programmers. Just all back end, all devs.
They just said they told their own engineers, but they call everybody an engineer there. Software engineers and things like that. So, they just told them 3 hours ago on that day. So, I don't know.
Wild.
Yeah. Stadia team size. Let me see if the.
Yeah, I'm just curious. Depending, just looking at what they are really offering and providing. How big of a team they had. Obviously, when you have a studio, you've got a much larger team. But yeah, it's unfortunate for the players, as you mentioned. These individuals that, not that they won't get their money back, but the people that have got hours in these games, and will that be transferable? That is obviously unfortunate. Yep. But all in all, if you bought a couple of games on Stadia, you a little bit of a refund. It's like getting a check back from the IRS before they hire 87,000 new agents and come and arrest you. Hey, a little payday, right? Maybe bought a couple $60 titles, didn't really play it all that much, get the money back, and buy something new that's coming out. I guess, I don't know.
Well, you can just renew your Xbox subscription and use their streaming instead.
Yeah, there you go.
How soon until people hack the devices so that you can use them for other things?
Well, aren't they just Chromecasts?
I don't know what they had. They're equivalent of Chromecast, yeah. So but I don't know if there's any more power to them. I mean, you could stream something to them, but I assume they'd be a little bit more, because their Chromecast products are pretty weak.
The sticks. This was a little bit stronger. This was a Cube, I believe.
Yep. Yeah, and they've always that's the thing, is I don't talk about it a lot, but I'm the one who pushed this idea back before they made it, right? The whole Chromecast thing, and the way that they've always implemented was just always short. They never quite do it right, and it's so frustrating because they always took shortcuts on trying to make these things. They made them too weak because they wanted, you use your phone for the power of your device, all this stupid stuff. And I think that when other companies come around and do it right, like Fire TV and Roku, and now with streaming devices, the way that Xbox is going to do it with something that's higher powered, people will go to the thing that feels better, that's faster. People don't always want something super lightweight, the first one out the door. They usually want the one that's been fixed and made better a couple times. And the thing is, Google always puts out a product, and they refuse to change it fast enough to keep up with what other people come out second.
Yeah. So that is the demise. If you are a Google person, Google Stadia individual, I'm sure Google will send you some information on that. As I did on that show back on February the 2nd, Brian, of 2021, I'll thank our friend UGX Vibe, who donated during our Stadia segment back 20 months ago. At that point, he was a subscriber for 36 months. He is now at 56 months. Thank you very much. Wow. It is greatly appreciated. I want to mention this real quick, Brian, before we get to our next topic. Overwatch 2 officially launched today, which back a couple of years ago would have been a big deal, but it's really more of just Overwatch 1 with a new name called Overwatch 2. Yep. It is
and Overwatch 1 is shut down. I mean, they're shutting down Overwatch 1 for 2.
It shut down over the weekend, and a lot of the reviews out that I read just indicate, it's pretty much just they keep calling it Overwatch 1.5. It's most of the same players, a couple of name changes, some voice changes, some new maps, but a lot of folks seem very uninspired with it, and that is not. Overwatch was really booming when it first came out. I'm not sure why they decided to even do something like Overwatch 2. You typically, like League of Legends and things of that nature, there's no League of Legends 2. You just keep that game up to date. Now, I know there was Dota 1 and Dota 2, but Dota 2 has been out for like 15 years now. So take that for what it's worth. It just seems interesting. I would expect more from Activision or Blizzard. Maybe I shouldn't, but it's unfortunate that they've shut down the first one to essentially bring forward a reskinned version of the first game.
Reskinned version of the,
I mean, do I have to buy it again? I mean, I looked at battle.net. I'm going to have to purchase it again for $60. I think that's kind of bullshit in my opinion.
Well, another thing is they're locking some of the heroes behind the battle pass.
Oh, wait, no, maybe you don't have to watch it. No, maybe you don't have to buy it. Maybe it's free.
Yeah, because I think they have a battle pass system now. And people are getting upset because you don't automatically get all the characters. Yeah, you don't get all the characters automatically, but you get some unlocked with the battle pass.
Oh, okay.
Where with the old one, you pretty much had access to every character, right? You'd load in
Yeah.
and you could get different skins and looks and
Because I'm
weapon
looking,
skins and things like that.
and I had Overwatch 1 installed on battle.net, and I just clicked on the icon and it says Overwatch 2 update. So I presumably, if you have Overwatch 1, you don't have to unlock characters. So you do get something into it. But again, it just goes to the idea of, why are you calling it Overwatch 2 if it's essentially just Overwatch again? Yeah, so it just came out today. It's available on Xbox, PC, PlayStation, and the Nintendo Switch. So I'll update it and probably give it a shot this week.
You can they have a tournament coming out. Did you hear about that for Overwatch 2?
No, well, the Overwatch 1 tournaments were miserable failures, so I'm sure these ones will be just as
this
just
one's
as
an
terrible.
LGBTQ plus tournament that they're doing this month.
Wait, why do you say that I can play in this?
Well, they say it's open but not limited to. It's an open but not limited to transgender, non-binary, gender fluid individuals and women.
So does that indicate that the prior tournaments were LGBTQ folks were not allowed? Because I don't believe that's true either.
Well, yeah, I mean, but they can't say that only only white men. I mean, it's pretty much what you can't say that on your banner and still get away with it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But
when you say it's LGBTQ plus people and others and pretty much everybody else, you're indicating that the prior tournaments did not allow those individuals.
Okay.
And I just don't think that's true.
Well, but it says it's open to any underrepresented genders. So if you're underrepresented gender, not a man. I mean, we're the overrepresented gender. Anybody other than us is the underrepresented gender.
Who is hosting? Who's hosting this event? Is this a Blizzard?
This is official. This is the Overwatch League.
Oh God Almighty! I mean, let's okay.
So
well,
yeah. So I it's not limited to trans. Yeah.
Calling all heroes.
As well as women.
Yeah. I mean, you've really just pigeonholed yourself with all of this. Wow. So let's see. They got all the women characters on the front of the page there. No McCrae, no Reaper, no men. So that's big. Oh, they have a Discord.
No
server.
trans men, because notice they don't want any trans men.
I'm sure this Discord server is top notch. I'm sure there's no trolling going on. I
can't even bring my account to go there. I can't.
Yeah, no, definitely. So equity. Well, here's a man. I don't want to assume it looks like a man.
You can't assume.
Yeah, that's true.
Why he's an overrepresented? How come he's allowed to cast it? He's an overrepresented gender.
Yeah. Oh, look at this. You can apply to be a caster. Maybe I'll apply to be a caster. I mean, I'm literally.
I'm sure they'd love you.
To be fair, I am by definition, a professional broadcaster. I speak.
You are a professional broadcaster. There's no reason they should accept you.
Filling it out as we speak.
I mean, you might as well fill it out and see what they say.
No,
you have to have a photo of yourself to be valid.
Oh no,
you have to submit a photo of yourself to be eligible. So to join, they'll ask for your name, Battle.net account, Discord account, social media links, and a photo of yourself. To make sure.
That's to get in the tournament.
The tournament, yes.
Yeah. To be a caster, there's a lot of stuff you got to do here.
They say one's appearance and gender expression has no contingency in your application.
You think they'll fly me out to this place?
Solely to assign an individual to your application.
I wonder if you think they'll fly me out. Where is this an online event, or am I gonna be able to go somewhere?
Let's see. I've got a video, but
it's called Caster Camp. That means they're going to allow anybody to be in here and be a caster. Brian, I'm a lot better than everybody else. See, that's the whole point. That's the whole point.
You're a professional. Maybe you can teach the class.
I mean,
here, let's overrepresented gender. Show you underrepresented gender. How you could? Oh, that's called mansplaining. Yeah, I guess you can't do that, Nick. I'm sorry. They might hate that.
This is all taking place online.
Yeah. Well, can't you be gender fluid for the day?
I'm not worried about being. I'm not worried about.
I'm
not worried about being gender fluid. I just thought they'd fly me somewhere and it would be fun. I'm not going to just sit here at my home and yell about. Oh, May goes in with the ultimate. Oh!
You're gonna have to have
I'm
a
not
list
gonna
of their pronouns though, because if you say the wrong he, him, or, she, or they, them, you'll really get some people mad.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks, Brian.
Anyway,
Thanks for taking our conversation about Overwatch 2 and really just making it about the important things here. Calling all heroes on a game that just came out. They're already hosting a tournament. That should be the indication of how big of an update this is. Callingallheroes.gg is the website. And by the way, Brian, you can host your own event. We should host our own event. Call it the Infection Podcast Invitational.
Yeah, sure, that'd go over well.
I mean, organize your own Overwatch community competition
on Twitter.
Planning an organization, plan or organize a community event using Overwatch.
There we go. We could. Will they list us on their website?
PH to a man's only league. Yeah, I'm not sure that's what they're looking for.
Only overrepresented genders, please.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Oh, we need to move on. What are we? Okay, what are we talking about next, Brian? You're in charge. I'm putting you back in charge.
All right. Well,
maybe that's
one thing. One thing I do want to have a little bit of an update. They did announce that they're looking to. It looks like it's going to most likely happen is that they're going to have controller support for World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
Remember, I said something about this. I said that for them to really make this more friendly, they're going to have to do something like controller support, which is going to totally change the game, and to provide it on other services. So that's one thing they've been talking about, looking at the code, that it looks like that they're maybe getting some sort of controller support, but what do you do with that bar? So if you're interested, especially with the streaming, it's just to put this on anything other than a computer, World of Warcraft has to be seriously changed. I think that was what I was getting at the time. And it looks like they're starting to move forward with that as a way to simplify. Because I think I was talking about, let people play it on their phones, let them play it on mobile devices so that you can continue your progress and not be stuck at a computer sitting in your room.
Yeah.
Looks like that's where they're going. So we'll see. Because it would be fun to play, because if you can do it with a controller, you can pretty much play on a phone as well.
Pretty much, yeah.
So a lot of the same stuff is there.
Yeah,
so
pretty interesting.
Something coming down the pipe.
Well, and the real question is, they've got support for PlayStation and Xbox controllers. The real question is, when does World of Warcraft come to xCloud? Or not xCloud,
yes.
Game Pass streaming. Now you won't be able to install it probably, but when does it come to streaming? Because that would make perfect
exactly
sense.
And at that point you have a little tablet, just like I was kind of talking about this with my kids sitting in the back seat, strap a tablet to the back of the seat. Yeah, let them play with that. Well, then, if you wanted to have an experience where people could play World of Warcraft on the road, that's the perfect way to do it. Have a screen, have a controller, and you could play that wherever you want. And it would open up the door to a lot of games.
And it's important to note that a game like World of Warcraft is online anyway. So the idea of, I don't have an internet connection doesn't matter for World of Warcraft or any of those other games. It's online already.
Yeah, and at least your character will just stop moving and it won't, go into some weird... You'll disconnect from the service, and maybe if you reconnect fast enough, you haven't logged out, and then crazy things haven't happened to your character. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Cyberpunk, because Cyberpunk has had some pretty big changes here, and we talked about in the last couple of weeks the show that's been on Netflix that's really pumped up the whole vibe and people being excited for it again. So there's been... Here, first of all, let's go over a couple things that have happened. They now have sold 20 million copies of the game because of the Edge Runner series that's been out there. People have been watching that and wanting to play. Some people that didn't own it before are purchasing it.
Have you watched it?
I have not.
I wonder if it's any good. I'll have to check it out.
Well, I would assume with that many people doing it, it's more of like an anime. It's an animated thing. It's not a regular acting, with people and cameras and things. So. But it might be, if it continues that kind of story and gets people excited, because the whole universe, like when we played some kind of the D&D style of Cyberpunk, that was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that universe that we were in, and I think we made it fun by how we did it. But I think that universe has a lot of potential, and so getting people into this whole Cyberpunk type of universe opens up the doors to a lot of other games, just like RPGs and magic and all that's its own thing. Cyberpunk is its own thing that I think has not been overplayed yet.
Yeah.
So 20 million copies, and they've announced that there's going to be a full sequel to Cyberpunk 2077 now, because I assume because of this. They've codenamed it Orion, and they announced it on the I think about 8 hours ago that they were going to. Well, this article came out 8 hours ago, but they announced it during a presentation today that they're going to be having a full expansion or a full sequel to Cyberpunk 2077. Which when we wrote that other prediction in the book, the one right before that was about Cyberpunk
being a huge flop.
We said 10/27 of 2020. Nick said Cyberpunk will not release on December 10th. That's one thing we were talking about then.
I was very accurate
delays.
about that. Yeah,
they were very accurate. And then 8/27 of 19, Cyberpunk overhyped and will fall short of expectations.
Yeah,
was still accurate, but you know what? They've been fixing it. They've been putting out updates to it, and now they're going to be putting a whole new version. The new version of Witcher is going to be on Unreal Engine. One thing I'm wondering if the reason that they're doing a sequel is rather than releasing it under their piece of junk engine that they finally realized is just not capable of running things today, if they're going to do it under Unreal Engine 5.
But what I don't understand is, well, there's a whole bunch of things I don't understand. But one of the things I don't understand is they are still in the process now of bringing out all of this new DLC and stuff like that. They've announced that there's going to be a DLC for the original Cyberpunk that is not out yet. Is that still planned?
And they're putting out a big patch too, fixing all the police officer AI. They're doing stuff to fix this one, but you know what? The next one is going to be online. Remember we talked about it being online a long time ago. Then the new sequel is going to be an online version. Same thing with the new Witcher is going to be online.
Okay, so hold on. I'm confused. So the current Cyberpunk, they're going to be releasing a paid DLC for, and then they're also going to be releasing a completely separate new game.
Yes, Phantom Liberty is the expansion, and then Orion
and that's
is
not
the
out
code
yet.
name for the. No, not yet.
Okay.
It's a CP77. Yeah, so that's going to be Cyberpunk 77 expansion. Is Phantom Liberty, and then Orion will be that whole new project.
Wow. So as you still have one smoldering pile of garbage, you're going to try and release another?
Yeah, and I mean, they've been fixing it a lot. I think this is kind of one of those No Man's Sky situations right now.
It absolutely is.
And I'm hoping that this big patch that they put out fixes a lot of the rest of the AI issues they've been having. Like they're adding the ability to have car chases with police and things that GTA has had, from the beginning. But this, I think they're kind of getting it to the point of what they expected more visually and performance-wise of when they released. And then I think they're going to be doing it again right with a proper testing team this time and make a version because I think they've realized you can't come back fully and release and have everything be like it should have been just because you fixed it. I mean, look at No Man's Sky and, for instance, who refuses to play it still because of the flop. But I think for them, they realize put out a new one that's on different hardware or different software. Put out something that works a lot better, that's online, that has all the things you promised, and maybe people will play it from the beginning.
VCK in the chat indicates brings up an important point, saying Cyberpunk, the one that came out a couple of years ago, took more than 6 years to make. So it's not like Orion is going to happen for a while. And apparently it's a new studio that's going to be working on it. And that studio really hasn't even formed yet. So it's still very far out in this. To me, it seems stupid to even do an announcement like that. I think it goes back to this idea, and part of the, some of the frustration that I have as a consumer, Brian, is you hyped up my game, you delayed it a couple of times, you released it in an unstable state. Now it is a lot better. I've heard from anybody that's played it, it's a lot better. But then you're going to charge me for a DLC and at the same time try and say that, we're making a new game as well. Why don't we get Cyberpunk 2077 to its full featured form that you promised me at this point over 2.5 years ago, and then talk about your expansion? It seems like it's done in bad faith.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I can understand, and I think this was more of a investors, announcement. It wasn't like, hey, PC Gamer, we have a new game. Of course, they knew that PC Gamer was going to get this.
I mean,
But
to be fair, they did put it out on Twitter.
Yeah, they put it on Twitter announcing it. So, but one thing too, this is their long-term product outlook, is what they call it.
Okay.
They've announced that they're going to be doing a new Witcher trilogy, so 3 more Witcher games.
Damn.
And they're going to be doing some third-party, I think, other games in the Witcher universe, and then a whole nother IP that they've announced, and we only know a code name for it, called Hadar or Hadar. I don't know which one it is. So, they didn't take the flop of Cyberpunk too hard, because I was more concerned that they were going to be, struggling as a company and not moving forward. Because I like the Witcher universe. I think the Witcher games are really good. They're getting kind of old now. A bunch of people bought it when the show came out, but I think doing it on a new engine and getting rid of the really old engine, I'm really excited for the possibility of what they can do on this now. Because imagine the graphics; they already look beautiful on their engine. It should look really good, and then not having Cyberpunk look like, because Cyberpunk, you could tell, was built on a really old engine when you played it. I expected it to look a lot better, but once you got in there, you realized, oh man, this thing is just being held back by this engine that they put it on. Yeah. Because the graphics weren't right, it was glitchy.
If it's a new studio and they're this far out, which they obviously are, then there's no question about it. They're going to be on whatever the latest version of Unreal is, especially if they're moving the new Witchers that direction too.
Yeah, and I've seen some screenshots and things, I think, that supposedly are from The Witcher, and it looks good. I think taking the whole engine development off their plate, and if they want to put something in, just having to add it to something that's already being constantly moving forward. And they've said this a long time ago. That's the way to do it, especially on a platform like this, where obviously they were struggling to keep the engine up on the years when they were living off of Witcher. Because Witcher money came in, and then they're continuing to do stuff and slowly improve the engine. Well, obviously not fast enough, because look at what technology did with all the other engines out on the market. It left them behind, and I think this woke them up. Cyberpunk woke them up to, we can't put out a product, because just because Witcher, it was current when we put that out, people looked at it and it didn't feel old. But now you put out Cyberpunk on the same engine, it's like nobody wants to play that. You start to realize, just like the nostalgia. We showed the videos of games that I played when I was a kid. But when I was a kid, the graphics looked perfect. They look great. The sound was amazing. And now you look at it, and my kids would look at it and be like, "What in the world is this?" You can't hardly make out what that character even is.
It's pretty funny you say the sound. Yeah, you had a three synth voice beeper system in your computer, and the sound was phenomenal. So
I remember installing the Sound Blaster, the Sound Blaster card when it first came out. No, well, I had the one right before that too, the 16. Mm-hmm. I got that, and I remember putting it in, and then I played Wolfenstein 3D on that, because before it was beeps on the little sound, the soundboard. It was the little circle speaker.
You had voices that it could make.
Yeah, and you hear a little beep inside your computer. You hear little things. Then I put that in and hooked speakers to it, and you know what it sounded like? It sounded like this when the door opened. Oh, that's what it sounded like, and I thought that was amazing. That sounded like a door opening, like a concrete door. But it's, so our expectation has changed, and I think that especially with the changes now that we've seen from Unreal Engine, and you see like these super realistic worlds, that's now the standard. And I think a lot of companies are trying to figure out, how do we put something that doesn't look like an old game, when people are putting out demos now of things where the grass looks ultra realistic, every rock looks ultra realistic. I think it's kind of setting it to where studios are struggling to either, do we make our games look more cartoony so that we don't have to adjust to that, or do we go for this ultra realism? Well, only a couple engines can do that.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Very interesting to watch and note. So we'll keep an eye on that with Witcher and or with the Witcher games and the new Cyberpunk. Interesting stuff out of CD Projekt.
Well, actually, hey, do you want to see the one thing they put in the new NVIDIA stuff? Do you want to show that video really quick?
Yeah.
There's a video where they show the new NVIDIA DLSS and the ray tracing turned on. Now, of course, this isn't on Unreal Engine 5. But see, just to show you, they are improving the technology in that game, and you can see here, it still looks like an old engine, but they are putting some of those newer technologies with the ray tracing, which I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's ray trace. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it definitely looks better. No argument there.
But you can still tell it's an old engine just by everything else around it.
Well, look at the FPS.
Frames, though.
Is that same hardware though? That can't be right. Oh well, 40. Yeah, but that can't be, because a 40,000 GPU is a 40,000 series is not running at 29 frames a second.
Well, no, it's the RTX 40. Was it a 40 series or a 40?
Well, there is no such thing as an RTX 40.
Well, that's what they said. It said RTX.
It's 4,000. Yeah, 4,000 series. Can't be a 40. Okay. I mean, it would be you could have a GTX 40, which would have been a card from like 2000.
Yeah. So here we go. So they show it with the RTX 4080 with 12 gigs and RTX 4080 with 16 gigs, and then they show.
But that's what I'm wondering
is
so but then what is this? What is the comparison here?
Probably with DLSS off and RT.
You're telling me
ray tracing on. So DLSS is what's doing that.
You're telling me a $1,600 top of the line GPU is playing Cyberpunk at 22 frames a second? No, that's what I'm saying. This comparison doesn't make any sense.
But no. But look. Okay, so what's weird is their graphic is what's messing you up. Look on the lower left, it says RTX off. On the lower right, it says RTX on.
Yes.
The stat, though, is for DLSS off with ray tracing on. So it's 22 frames per second when you do ray tracing with no DLSS, I guess. That's not what the video is showing you, though, because the video is showing you with RTX on and off. Kind of weird. There's
it still doesn't make
wrong
sense
with the infographic.
Yeah. Okay, I see what he is saying. So with ray tracing on, but with the DLSS off, you have 22 frames a second. But there's no way on a 40 series card that's what's happening. There's no way. These things are 16 gig cards. There's no way that they're.
Yeah, but their engine is pretty inefficient. I wonder if there's just something crazy going with the engine slowing it down.
That just I hate infographics like that make it seem like, oh wow. Like, yeah, you're still talking about a $1,600 GPU, so don't get too excited over there about it. How will this play on my GTX? Let me be clear, not RTX. My GTX 1070, Brian. What will I do?
Probably 5 frames per second.
I played the game fine. When it first came out, and
no ray tracing. We can't do ray tracing.
No, exactly.
Thing, so.
Yeah, well then, perfect.
I have to play it on my Xbox to get ray tracing. Yeah. Hey, look at my frames jump. Ray tracing off.
Yeah, exactly. RTX is always off when you have a video card that's 6 years old.
So hey, so Epic announced. We were talking about Unreal Engine a little bit. Epic announced a new push that they're doing along with Dove, and they're doing
the soap
thing
brand?
called Real. Yes, the soap brand called Real Virtual Beauty.
Ugh.
Trying to get change female representation in video games. Whoa, and I don't know if you can pull this up.
Yeah, I can pull it up. Yeah, I'm not commenting.
Now, one thing I want to say is, so they take people that have either something that's different about them, like it looks like someone has maybe albinoism or something like that. Someone who maybe has a form of a disability, various disabilities, right? And then they have a person who's overweight. And you're saying that a person who has a physical disability or something that's genetically different, from, not saying wrong with them, right? But genetically different with them, that they're then saying, or you're a woman, and you're in the same classification as a disabled person. Really? You're saying we're representing women, and you show a woman who's overweight, and then you show disabled people. How is that the same thing? Someone who chooses to not control their weight is not the same as someone who's born being Down syndrome, someone who is forced to be in a wheelchair because they can't use their legs, or I guess someone who has is albino, which can for them make them feel uncomfortable about it. Or you can choose to be overweight.
Okay, I have to.
That's my issue. Not that they're saying, because the other people, sure, represent them in video games, But how are you putting them on the same level of classification of what should be a priority as a person just because they're overweight needs to be represented in a video game?
How do you know that the one person is? Does it say that? Do we know that that's the case, or I mean,
What's different about them than the rest?
It looks like I'm not arguing your point. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. It is.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
I do know what you're saying, but what I don't understand is what are they? So they've taken these people and turned them into avatars,
NPCs, like characters.
But for what? Like what is this? Is it a video game?
Well, okay, so we've created a coalition of allies. You gotta love when these word allies in the gaming industry and beyond.
That word always pisses me off.
Including Epic's Unreal Engine and women in games. And together with our Real Virtual Beauty Coalition, we're on a mission to educate and empower game developers to create a healthier. Wait, whoa. Healthier? How is that healthier? You're saying it's okay to be morbidly obese. That has nothing to do with healthier. She's morbidly obese. That's the definition of morbidly obese. Go look up the definition. She is the definition. When you say morbidly obese, it's not 700 pounds. It's not 1,000 pounds. 300 pounds is morbidly obese in a medical book. That's the way it is. And so they said, so a healthier, let's see where I went on here, and more diverse representation of girls and women in gaming around the world. Okay, how about you say a more diverse representation of girls and women in the gaming around the world? Not healthier, because by no means does saying putting people that are overweight in your video game is a way of promoting healthier. Now, they may say mentally healthier because you shouldn't feel ashamed of being overweight, but you know what? If it's going to cause you to die 5-10 years earlier, maybe you should not encourage and say, hey, this is healthier. Because guess what? If we get in a situation where she has to run for help and I have to run for help and we have to go 5 miles to get there, who's going to make it? Right? Not her.
It's an interesting point.
Do you understand? And so that's my issue is do not push healthier on me and then say that's healthier. Now, I would say that diverse representation, I think you shouldn't only put perfect women in video games if you're having something that's supposed to be somewhat realistic.
Yeah, but right? But now you've gotten into the point of, and I vehemently disagree with your argument that there's this idea of a perfect character in a video game. I think in itself, the idea that people say that I think is beyond ridiculous. But
how about idealized, right? There's an idealized type of female character, things like that.
Yeah, but I mean that's in every media ever, and if that that's a whole different conversation. So it says here, gamers want true-to-life diversity even in the fantasy realm of gaming. What about all these, Brian? There's a million of these games that offer you to do whatever the hell you want with your character. You can make them as tall or short,
you can make your own character.
Fat or is not. I don't understand. Like what about all these games where you can do all this stuff? You've been able to create RPG characters in games for 25 years. I don't understand what the. Yep. Like, so what are they indicating? That every single game needs to have a character customizer where you can make your character as large or as tall or as short or give them a I don't understand. Like, what are they? I don't understand what they're trying to do. None of it makes any sense.
What really? Do you want to know what the secret problem that this creates is for competitive video gaming is? You have to create a hitbox that when you're playing competitive games against each other, so that one person's hitbox is not larger than another person's hitbox. So when you're playing a game, it's not easier to shoot one character or another. Or you're making everybody's hitbox bigger to match the biggest character you have. Or you're making it to where their hitbox is actually not the picture you're seeing on the screen. And so you think you're hitting that character and you're not because you're shooting the sides of them. This creates a major problem where if you're playing a competitive video game and their body sizes are not the same, how do you determine what's a hit on one character versus another and keep them consistent and reliable? This is a big problem for competitive video games. How do you represent women without either making it so people have hitboxes outside of where their bodies are, or making it so that people, when they're getting hit, you're shooting them on the side here, but it's not really hitting them because their hitbox is here. That's a big problem that's not being mentioned.
So you will be able to play this, Brian, or it is called it's called Real Virtual Beauty, and you'll be able to actually go in here and apparently do something. The website does not appear to be live yet, but you'll be able to use the ArtStation platform to play as these various, only women, but various women.
That's very diverse of them.
Well, diversity is their middle name. Well, I mean, I don't really know what else to say.
Yeah, I
really don't know what to say.
And that's why I pointed out. That's what struck me is you're saying someone with a physical disability that they cannot control, and then you're saying also being obese. There's one thing these people are being underrepresented because you generally do not see people that look different than your average, right? In a lot of these video games. But you know what? If
bullshit. Hold on. Yes, you absolutely do. Look at all the games that we've played over the years. Games like Conan and games like Cyberpunk and World of Warcraft, and you've got demagogues and all of these various things. You know, it's like the notion here, Brian, that Dove is making, and you hear this from these women in gaming and all these other nonsensical advocacy groups, is that every video game character is a white male, and it's just not true. I mean, you can Overwatch. I mean, we just talked about Overwatch 2 launching. It's got a huge range of characters. It has since day one. World of Warcraft has been out for 25 years, and you could play as anything you wanted, a dragon, a this, a that, a Dota. You've got all of these various games, Diablo. You can play with whoever you want. I mean, it's just the pandering and the virtue signaling is just so exhausting. It's exhausting.
Yeah, so we'll see where this goes, but this is something they've been doing. I mean, just, you see in a lot of these games where they wanted to put women that were bigger than your average, and so they started pushing that into a lot of these games. And
here's
now
the
it's
thing.
Moving from that to how to get someone with a wheelchair in certain games without changing the.
But here's
it's a lot
of
work to make someone to be in a wheelchair and have it feel like the same thing as what people that are running around.
But here is the important thing. Nobody cares when they just do it. It's when they make this big deal about how they're morally significantly better than you and anything that you do, and you are inferior. If they would just do this stuff in games, nobody would care. Then you can get your more. But see, Brian, it's about the accolades. It's about the, oh my gosh, Dove and Epic, you're just such good companies, and oh, you're just so morally just in everything that you do, and you're just phenomenal. Just, if you want to add people to the game with disabilities, just add them. Nobody's going to care.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to care.
Yep.
I mean, Brian, I have never looked at a video game cast list and went, oh, I can't play this game because a character looks. You know how many decisions I've ever made on playing a video game because of the characters in it? Zero.
Well, and there's a lot of games where to me. And there was a lot of games where all the men had giant muscles and they all looked a certain way. That didn't make me mad. I'm like, well, I don't look like that guy. Well, no, I don't. Because it's either a movie or it's a video game, and I don't expect to look like the character that's in the video game. And now they're getting it to where it's a lot easier to switch people out. It made PH mad that it didn't look like them, but yeah, I don't understand the outrage. And now that there's more girls playing video games than there used to be, they're starting to have more representation of girls characters in video games that aren't just the ones made for men to play, right? But I don't think taking it to a point where you're like, okay, well, we have to have albino people in every game. We have to have people with some sort of Down syndrome or a mental disability in every single game. We have to have wheelchairs in every single game. That just doesn't make sense. Different games call for different things. I mean, we could have a wheelchair in Rocket League. That'd be perfect. That'd be crazy. Have a car that's like looks like a wheelchair. You're represented, right? Something. But how are you going to fit that into every game? It just doesn't. How are you going to climb a wall in a wheelchair? You know, in certain games, climb a ladder.
Enough.
What are you
Brian,
going to do, right? How do you
I'm
represent that?
Where can people find you online, Brian? I can't do this anymore. Where can people find you online?
If you want to find me at Brian Aldridge, the guy Parlor Getter, Truth Social. And if you want to give me fightoftech.com, our website, infectionpodcast.com. Hey, we made it this far, right? Infectionpodcast.com, where on the right-hand side, you can join our server on Discord. And, of course, you can go if there's a news topic or something like this you think we should talk about in the next show. Make sure you post a link to it in our news channel. We'll refer to it before when making our show notes. If you want to watch the live show, you can do that through Twitch and YouTube. Or if you want to listen to it after the fact on our podcast, you can do that through all the links at the lower right-hand side. A lot of different ways and platforms you can do that. If you are going to do that, that means that we have uploaded that particular episode already and have the show notes up on the website. And you can go there, and there's links to videos and articles that we refer to, source material, and a video and audio player built right into that page. It makes it really easy. If you want to support us, you can go to the support option up top or infectionpodcast.com/support.
Brian, you're off the you're off the rails today, my man. You're off the rails.
Hey, just let you know what I see.
I want to thank our friend UGX Vibe for hitting us up with the 56-month resubscription. It is greatly appreciated. Well, Brian, I'm not sure that we'll be here next week after this conversation.
May have finally have gotten it.
Yeah, you might have finally driven the dagger, driven the nail far enough, Brian, and that is all she wrote. At least it'd be fitting. It would be our final episode is the demise of Stadia. So, I mean, I guess all good things do come to an end.
We went out with Stadia.
Yeah, we went out with Stadia. I guess we had a good run. Brian, thanks as always. Appreciate it. We'll see you next Tuesday, all right?
See you later.
Yes, sir. Well, folks, I disavow everything that Brian said. If you want to check me out on social media, you can follow me on Twitter at Nicholas M. Craig. You can check out my website, nickcraig.com. Of course, if you missed any portion of this program, maybe you want to check out the Real Virtual Beauty collaboration that Dove and Epic Games are doing. But you can find that link on our website. It's infectionpodcast.com. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Have a great week. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.